How are you? You know, when I walked into the room about an hour ago and all the music was up here, and I just felt such energy, and I hope you are too. And I'd like to introduce myself first before we start with this panel. My name's Marianne Cushy, and I'm the moderator of Coffee with the Corner Office. But my other job is anchoring the morning news here in San Diego, for those of you who are outside of San Diego County. Yes! Totally. And we start our day at 4:30 a.m. till 7 a.m., and then we have another show at 11, but the important show to watch is at 4:30. And our alarm clocks go off much earlier than that. Our wake-up call is at 2 a.m., which is basically the time when a lot of people have last call. When I'm driving to work, I can tell you that by first experience. But, you know, Kimberly Dozier, I've been following her career because as I am a television journalist, and it's just truly remarkable, and I can just totally relate to the part about no. Because I remember when I first started out in this business, I was very tentative. I was in college. I was just kind of meandering around, but I knew I wanted to do something in television news, and I remember a man telling me, screaming at me, saying, "What is it that you want to do?" I mean, scared me out of my skin. And I said, I want to be a television news reporter. And so I took it and I ran with it. And so I hope everybody here can find your passion, because that's what drives me beyond the 4 alarm clocks that I set in the morning to come in and do my job. And it's my pleasure to moderate this panel. Once again, it's Coffee with the Corner Office, 5 remarkable women, and they're going to share their thoughts with you this morning.
Good morning. I'm Susan Salka, and I am CEO of AMN Healthcare. I've been with AMN for over 24 years, and never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that I would be CEO of a billion-dollar company. When I started, it was a single-service travel nurse company, and today we are the largest healthcare staffing organization and known as the innovator in workforce solutions all across the country. In addition to my passion for my role at AMN, I'm equally as passionate about being a mom, a wife, a daughter, an aunt, and a friend. My husband, who I completely adore, and I love to cook, and we love to have people over to our home, anybody who will grace us with their presence and share and entertain. So it's really good that since I love to eat and drink so much, I also like to run and do yoga and some other things. They ask us to share fun little tidbits. My kids are all off to college now, so we had a new family addition join us on Saturday. We adopted Chance from Mexico. He's a little 2-year-old mixed breed dog, and so far he's sleeping through the night and eating his milk bones, and there's no accidents, so I'm feeling really successful today. Thank you for having us here.
Good morning again. I'm Melissa Hayden Cook, and I have the privilege of being the CEO for Sharp Health Plan. Sharp Health Plan is the only nonprofit regional commercial health plan here in San Diego, and we're part of a $2.9 billion integrated delivery system here in San Diego, Sharp Healthcare. You know, when I was young, I wanted to run a nonprofit. You know, I used to be the one who saved animals and brought strays home. And I actually was able to achieve that dream. And I did start as a sales rep, and I was able to really enjoy the healthcare field as it's developed. We're very active in healthcare reform, as you might know. And as I mentioned before, we have amazing, amazing women that work for Sharp Healthcare. I have 2 daughters, and one soon to go off to college, so to keep my sanity, I'm trying to stay relevant in their lives. I'm thrilled to be here to talk about women in management, so thank you.
Good morning, my name is Janet Romeo, and I have the great pleasure of being the general manager of this facility you're in today, so I hope everybody will enjoy today. I've been with Caesars Entertainment, which is our parent company, for over 30 years now, and way back early in my career, I actually dealt blackjack. Not very well, so to the benefit of the customers I had back there, I guess. But I've been with the company for a long time. This is a great place. We are thrilled to have everybody here today. And for me, this is great to be on this panel. So have a great time today.
Good morning. I'm Daphne Hearn. I'm the special agent in charge of the local FBI office here in San Diego. Certainly a career in law enforcement was nothing I ever imagined for myself almost 23 years ago, but if I could do it all over again, I don't think I would change a thing. I don't get up before 5 in the morning, although I do love to run. It just doesn't happen for me. I don't love to cook, so I'm going to be at Susan's on Friday night, I think.
Perfect.
Hello, I'm Bonnie Dumanet. I got a lot of power here, huh? I'm your district attorney. I parked the car in the Harvard yard. I'm very high tech, so I'm going to take your picture and Facebook it. I'm proud to be your DA. I have a passion for helping victims, for putting the bad guys away, and being smart on crime. And we have a great team with a 94% conviction rate. My team is out there. Could you stand up so we could acknowledge you? They rock. I don't do any of those things that Deborah talked about earlier, about getting up early, exercising, having coffee, networking. I get going early in the morning after about 3 cups of coffee, and I talk to only those at the beginning that I have to. But I work all night. I don't have any kids, but I do have a dog. Her name is Abby. She's an Australian healer, and she's the best dog I've ever had. She's got a big heart on the forehead of her head there. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. And I have to add a personal note that if I were to throw a dinner party, I'd invite you all because you women are a hoot. Great sense of humor. Okay, first off, women CEOs. They are part of a small and slowly growing group. I know Deborah talked about the glass ceiling and that we have to crack it even more. Okay, so there's this continuing debate on whether or not female CEOs do or should govern like male CEOs. I kind of have a feeling I know the answer to that. So I want to pose the question, first of all, what is your philosophy on this and how do you lead your organization? I know that's kind of a big picture kind of thing, but if we can start out with Melissa.
Sure. I think that I lead authentically, or I try. I think that women CEOs have certain have traits, and they have female and male traits, and male CEOs have female and male traits. And I think that you have to come to the table, be yourself, and to just lead authentically. And so that's what I would say, that there is not a specific difference, but a combination of qualities.
Bonnie, you want to chime in on that?
I agree. I think we bring to the table many different things, but I think it's all about who you are, your life experiences, and that's what I bring to the table. But I agree about authenticity. I think you have to be authentic, but I tend to want to be inclusive, to put everybody at the table and talk through things, and I think that may be something that I bring as a woman, but, I don't focus on that, particularly in law enforcement. We kind of just do it, I think.
Right. And when we talk about that, Susan, the fact that there are obviously more men CEOs than women, how do the people out there who want that to be as their goal, what are some of your practical tips? What do you do? Networking, is that important? Or, because sometimes the old adage of, I'm going to work really hard, does not always get you to the top.
Yeah, you do have to work hard, and you have to work harder than anybody else, whether you're a male or female. Somebody asked me once, well, I'm working as hard as everybody else. Why am I not getting the opportunities? Well, you have to offer something different, and that's where the authenticity comes in. That's where your experiences come in. What is it that you bring to the table that's going to make you stand out? And I'm sorry, but it's not going to be breasts or estrogen. It's going to be something that really makes you a unique leader and contributor to the team. I also think that, for me as a leadership style, always focusing on the needs of others rather than yourself will lead to success for yourself, because if you are helping to develop and create success for those around you, certainly your clients and customers, but also your team members, then it's likely to be a positive reflection back on you, and you will get more opportunities.
And Jana, what about in the entertainment industry? Because after all, you're a district supervisor, is that right?
Regional.
Regional supervisor of Harrah's Rincon. So what does that, there's got to be certain characteristics within the entertainment industry that are peculiar to that versus any other industry.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about the gaming industry, and, it has been for many, many years a male-dominated industry. And so for women to kind of move up throughout the organization was pretty kind of vertical, and you really had to find your voice. Back to the authenticity, where do you want to be and how do you want to get there, but make sure it's genuine. And I find that, for many years, I'd go to meetings and there'd be 98 people and 96 of them were men and 2 were women. And the social events were, we're going to go fishing, we're going to go hunting, we're going to go play golf. And that was something I really never had an interest in doing, and I frankly still don't. But so you had to find your own place and how you could present yourself and be successful, even though you might not be part of that social network or social club. So.
And Daphne, what about you? We have all these television shows that sort of, and I should talk to you because in the media they all paint our industries a certain way, overly dramatic or perhaps not in the superlative where things aren't true. So for you, what is your management style? Because I know, first of all, too, how did you get from Goodyear to the FBI?
It wasn't easy. And like I said, a career in law enforcement was nothing I ever imagined for myself. But along the road, I met a few FBI agents and was certainly very impressed by them. And so it sort of drove me to the FBI. But my management style, as far as being a woman, I think we're a little less threatening, possibly, than a male CEO. And most of my day is spent talking to people like Bonnie, very collaborative, listening to everybody's ideas. The idea doesn't have to be, the best idea doesn't have to come from me. It just comes from somebody I've listened to, and I spend that time implementing that idea. I think, when you spend a lot of your day talking to people, time management is certainly a problem. A lot of times my workday starts at 6 p.m. when I finally sit down to read emails or approve documents or go through things. So I think women, being less threatening, they are, spend more time talking to employees and listening, quite honestly.
Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks, news you can use, and we'll go down the line with a few words of advice. We all know about networking, but what within networking should you do? And perhaps the other elements of moving your way up the ladder. I mean, we talk about passion, but what about passion? Is it the fuel within yourself that drives you and your days, your 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And, what are the elements, Bonnie? First of all, with you. Give some news that people can use who want to make that next step.
Well, I never planned, but I found my passion. And I think that message about finding your passion and then following it through, and then what Kimberly said about the no's, I think you don't accept the no's, or you have a plan A, B, and C. I originally wanted to be a teacher. There were no teaching jobs. I then was going to law school. I became a junior clerk typist. And, so you look for ways to achieve those goals and don't take no for an answer. And you learn more from your failures sometimes than you do from your successes.
Yeah, that's hard to take, though. Melissa?
Yes, it is.
Melissa?
I would say be self-confident. And work on that. And
How do you work on that?
well, I think that if you come to the table feeling like you have a deficit, that's going to show. You're not going to have that confidence. If you work with in an area that you enjoy and you're passionate about, you're going to be amazing at that. And that's what's going to drive you. It's going to drive you to know what's happening in the market, what's happening with your competitors, and that's going to fuel you. So take that, but be confident in yourself. Be tenacious. I love that Bonnie said. You know, things don't happen with just one phone call. I mean, a no is not really a no. And I think, I didn't have a plan either, okay? I didn't say this is what I wanted to do other than I wanted to be a nonprofit. And I think just always, and this is what I tell people, not only master your own job, but know where your job fits in the overall vision of the organization, and always know about the next job. Always know about how you can serve your boss and your organization. And that path will open for you because you're going to demonstrate your abilities in just daily activity.
And Susan, what about you? How do you get, I mean, when you're out of college, does somebody aspire to be the CEO and president and director of AMN Healthcare Services? I mean, you know, realistically speaking, how do you get to that rung? Is it a process or?
Well, yeah, like everyone has said here, I think it wasn't a path that I laid out for myself. It wasn't even a goal that I had, but I found that as the company was growing and evolving, there was more that needed to be done. And I would raise my hand or just dive in and say, okay, I'll do that, not necessarily because I had the skill, but because it's what the company needed from me. And so it gets back to what I said earlier. I think if you put the needs of your organization and people around you first, and you're willing to raise your hand and say, I can do that, or I think I can figure it out pretty quickly. You know, when I was younger in my career, I had a boss and mentor who said to me, boy, you have a lot of moxie. And I'm a simple girl from Nebraska, so I wasn't even really sure what that meant. So I had looked it up, and it really means that you've got to have that passion and perseverance to push through adversity and to really move on to opportunities that you may not be as comfortable with. It gets back to the confidence, taking risks, and putting yourself out there in a way that you can grow and develop. I guarantee if you're in a position where you're starting to feel a little uncomfortable, that's when you're doing some serious learning.
So is it intuitive, Janet? You were Deputy Attorney General in Nevada?
In Nevada.
So how do you go from there to what you are today? Is it something that you felt or that a lot of it, I'm hearing a lot of I stumbled into, but
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I felt it. I enjoyed the hospitality industry. And when I came out of law school, I wanted to be a lawyer. And so I was hired by the Attorney General's office, and I spent a couple of years there, and then actually came back into the hospitality entertainment industry as an attorney. And it just, as I was exposed more to the business side of things as opposed to just the legal side, I really loved it. And I think to your point, Susan's point of raising your hand, so there were opportunities came along, I'd raise my hand. Nope, you're not qualified. I'd raise my hand. And you just keep doing that. And eventually, either there's somebody out there that says, you know what, I think you can do this. Somebody has confidence in you and gives you that opportunity. And that's what happened to me. And I think, the other thing is, you always have to, you can't know everything. You got to surround yourself with smart people and don't pretend to know everything. Listen, learn, and make sure that you got good people around you, which I do, and I know some of them are out there. So, and that will help you grow in the organization as well.
And Daphne, you succeeded a man who retired, right? So what do you bring to the office that's different, or is it, and should we make that distinction?
Well, I don't make that distinction with myself, quite honestly. I have spent more than half my life now trying to differentiate or pretend sort of that I'm not a woman and just wanted to be realized or recognized as a hardworking FBI agent. And I think it goes along the same lines as what everybody else is saying. I didn't have a plan for myself within the FBI, but I loved what I was doing, and therefore I worked hard at it every day and volunteered to do whatever was asked of me. So I think that's sort of the consensus, is that you just have to work hard and love what you're doing and do the best you can do every day.
And be a team player.
Yeah, that's important, isn't it? Being nice to each other, isn't that right? in
Yeah,
that?
it's all about relationships, I think, and also supporting other women along the way.
Do you think we have enough of that? I know that wasn't one of the questions on here, but I'm just asking, do women support other women? Because sometimes I don't see that.
Yeah, not always.
I think that, you know what I would say? I think they do. I mean, I think women watch the success of other women, and if you've got a healthy team, and if you've got a healthy dynamic in the organization that you work, you do support each other. And I think that, as Daphne said, I think this is so important. Do not come to the table with a gender filter. Do not let your gender enter the room before you do. You're a person who's capable, who contributes, who's there to make a difference. That's what you want to be present with. And when there's success, you want to, with another woman or a man, you want to celebrate success. I do think that women bring a few unique qualities they might be better suited for, and that might be collaboration, right? So we've gone from this command and control leadership style from years and years ago to collaboration, okay, to teamwork and culture development. And there's a possibility, probably a very good one, that women make great leaders because it comes more naturally to them to collaborate, celebrate, listen, and be a servant leader. So I think we might be coming to the table with just a little edge in leadership, at least now that that style's more popular, right?
Okay, so Melissa, let's follow that through. Susan, what do you think women, let's make the distinction now. What do you think women CEOs, women leaders bring to the table that are different than men?
Well, I think they can, first of all, you should embrace being a female leader and just being the leader you are, being authentic, but you shouldn't try to hide from the fact that you're a woman, I think. I think it can actually be an advantage because unfortunately there aren't as many female leaders in a lot of industries and for me as public company CEOs. And so use that to your advantage. There are times when I know I'm being asked to be on a panel because they need a chick. And I'm okay with that because, I can represent my industry and my company and I can use that as a platform and a venue to be a good role model for other women. And so I think it's important that we see ourselves as female leaders as important role models to hopefully inspire others. Other things that women bring to the table, I agree, collaboration is a really key one. I actually think that the female leaders that I have worked with, for whatever reason, have been less emotional. They're just more kind of focused on what is the goal, what is the task at hand, not as caught up in maybe agendas. And so having just that diversity amongst your team is really important. I actually don't think it would be healthy to have a high majority of men or a high majority of women. The more ideal situation is to have a really diverse team that brings those different views to the table.
Janet, what do women bring to the table?
I agree with everything that's been said. I think the collaborative approach to managing is at least what I've observed and also what I've experienced. You see more in women, and that's not to say men don't do it. I'm not trying to, put people in different buckets, but I think women just are naturally maybe more collaborative and listen. Back to your earlier question about competitive, I think, are women competing with each other? Do they support one another? I think for the most part they do, but there's a little bit of that, and some of that just has to do with people want to succeed. And whether you're a woman or you're a man, I want to succeed. So there's a little bit of competition. Competition's not bad, but I think supporting one another and listening to one another, learning from one another is what this conference is all about and benefits all of us.
So let's approach that from a different way. What are some of the pros and cons being a woman CEO of Bonnie, first female district attorney for the city, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
County.
No, the county of, we don't want to go there, the county of San Diego. What are some of the pros and cons of being a female district attorney?
Well, one of the pros is I get to hug people all the time. And I mean that sincerely. As a woman district attorney, when I talk with victims, families, men and women, and they've lost a child or a loved one, I can sit with them and feel with them and make it okay for them to feel and to give them a big hug afterwards. And I think that's, a plus. But it's also, I think we're less threatening in some way, because we sit at the law enforcement table with all the chiefs and the sheriff. And I think, it brings a different lens to the table. And I want to point out, by the way, since you have Daphne here, so Daphne is the head of the FBI, we have the head of the NCIS, we have now the chief of police, we have the U.S. attorney, and the district attorney are all women.
Woo! That's awesome. Who's head of NCIS? Better tell Mark Harmon that.
Susan Simon.
Ah, good. Good one.
We'll keep Mark Harmon on another
Yeah,
level.
well, he's on another network anyway. So, Daphne, too, what are the pros and cons? And in this journey to level the playing field between men and women, we do bring something obvious, other than the obvious, that's different, right?
A little different. Susan said we're not necessarily more emotional.
Right.
I would say we have a higher emotional IQ than most men. And I
Well, I
mean
like
that. It's not I just think we're more intuitive, more feeling, and just more in tune with others' feelings. And I just think that's kind of a genetic makeup. I'm not saying that that's a disadvantage for men. I think they can learn that. But I think we come to the table certainly with more of that.
I like this question because it brings out the anecdotal parts, the parts that were, beyond the PC part. So, Janet, what are the pros and cons then of being the leader?
I think pros are a little bit more of the caring kind of approach to things, maybe along the lines of what Bonnie mentioned, just, recognizing perhaps that it's all not about the job. Sometimes it's about people, and they have personal lives and, things going on, and you kind of bring that filter into, maybe I can understand a little bit of what people are going through if things aren't happening the way you'd like them to happen strictly at work. I think what I find a con a little bit sometimes, it's not a con, but just trying to be heard. If there aren't a lot of women, because everything's competitive, and sometimes your voice, and you're trying to find, how do I get my voice out there to be heard? And that's, I think for me, it's been a struggle throughout.
So how do you get your voice heard? And how do you go beyond the intimidating? Because I think all of us at one time or another felt, a little overwhelmed or that feeling of intimidation. So do you have any little tricks that you do? Do you talk to yourself, say certain words whereby you get over it?
I don't know that there's any tricks. I think it's just being conscious of it, and then the next time the opportunity presents itself, finding your way to speak. Because you got to be who you are. You can't scream and yell or just to be out there. You got to be who you are. And sometimes it's a subtle way. Sometimes it's just doing it more on one-on-one. I'm more of a one-on-one person than trying to make my voice as loud as everybody else when you're in a big group. And I think you can be effective that way, not always, but you've got to sit back, think about it, figure out how am I going to do it next time and do it better.
You got something.
Well, I think that we have to remember that it's not how much we say, it's what we say. And to sit back and to kind of, so if you're in a male-dominated room and just kind of get a feel of the audience like you would anywhere, regardless of gender. Because you don't want to be offensive so I have a couple tricks I would do. One way to do it that can calm it is to speak and add on to, in the beginning, when you first speak, add on to what someone has said if it's male dominated. So I'd like to take George's point one step further, or agreeing with it so they don't feel like it's this, but they feel like it's this. So, and then just say thoughtful things that are meaningful and move the conversation forward, but don't speak because you feel like you just have to.
Pick your battles.
Pick your battles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was basically going to say the same thing. I can remember so many instances when, like when we took AMN public in 2001, and I was in New York, and we were pricing the deal, and I walked into the room, and there was a table full of 25 bankers and lawyers, and I was the only woman. in the room, and it was a little intimidating to walk in there. And I thought, okay, girl, if you got something to say, it better be good. And so just kind of, using that reserved judgment to say, you need to participate. You are there for a reason. And in fact, if you don't, it says something about you as well. But just make sure that when you're going to speak up, that you have something valuable to contribute and you're not just talking for talking's sake. You can kind of earn that right later on. I'd say a lot more stupid things today because I feel like maybe I've earned that right. People know I have a few smart things to say too. But you do sort of have to earn that right. And it's not a female-male issue. I mean, I think that's anybody who's earlier in your career. You need to make sure that you are finding your places to add value.
Okay, I have a practical question to ask you. How much commitment do you all make to your career? It's not a job, because a job is something that I think a lot of people define as maybe they're not passionate about, but a career you dedicate pretty much your whole life. So how much time do you give it? Can you quantify it, or is it part of it all that you don't quantify it?
It's just a constant part of my life, and maybe for me it's a bit unique in that I've had the privilege of being with AMN for over 24 years, kind of growing up in my career there, even though I did do other things before. If you go out in the parking lot, my car license plate says AMN Rocks. I live and breathe and bleed AMN. And my children grew up with AMN. And so while I wasn't working all of the time, it was very much a part of who I am and what my life is. At the same time, everyone that I work with at AMN knows how important my family is to me. My family is in the building many times. If my kids had games, had parent-teacher conference, whatever it was, my parents are in there all the time. It's very much sort of a family affair for us, even though it's a big organization. And so I found, for me at least, it's worked better not to create some sort of walls or separation. There are a few. I generally don't open up my Facebook because I use that for my children and my family across the country. So I don't necessarily open that up to employees, but I open up a lot of things. We have people in our home all the time from AMN celebrating different things. So for me, it's worked better to create this blend.
Okay, as we start to wrap up, any other comments that you would like to make, pieces of advice, that one last piece, morsel that everyone here might take with them? Anybody? Yes, no?
Be true to yourself.
Yeah.
I think that the authenticity that we're talking about, I think when you deal with people at a level of who you are, and who you are is a function of all your life, I think that's the best way to deal with people. And it is all, in the end, it's all about relationships. No matter who they are, male, female, but always make time for your family, because in the end, nobody on their deathbed says, I wish I worked some more.
But I would also say align yourself personally and professionally with people who share your values. That, I think, is the singular most important thing, that your values are in sync with the organization you work with. And that's how you can show up every day and be authentic.
And be willing to give credit. One of the biggest things I see is, it's to me, if you get something done, it doesn't matter whose idea it is, and I am more than happy to say it's somebody else's idea and to let them shine, because I think that's how you get things done. Yep. And that may be a little bit about being a woman too, I think, because we usually downplay our roles sometimes and have to learn to brag, because that's not natural for us.
Yeah, women don't brag a lot. That's really one thing that I've seen.
Yes.
But I think good leaders don't brag a lot.
Yeah.
I think your actions speak for who you are, and I would also say, be willing to change your mind. Like,
yes.
That is just so important, because I learn something every day. And we're allowed to change our mind. So don't lock in and then ride that and do this. And this works at home too, by the way. Don't just lock in for all it's worth and pull all your little points in to make your point to be right. It's not important. It's not about being right. It's about making the right decision with the information you have. And if you happen to get more information, then you have a right to change your mind.
And that's Coffee with the Corner Office.